Look, folks, thanks very much. You're very, very welcome here to AFBI Hillsborough. I'm really delighted you have taken a bit of time out of your busy days to come and visit us, because we have a lot to show you as to what the research we have been doing over the past couple of years. My name's Elizabeth Magowan. I'm one of the directors here in AFBI, and I'm really just here to open up and set the scene for what you're going to hear as you go right round the field. So there's lots of stands and scientists right round, from soil science to animal science to slurry work, the biomass connector, and then there's lots of other information up in the focus areas at the top of the farm. If you haven't already got one, we've produced effectively the yellow pages of what we have been working on here in AFBI over the last number of years. So there's quite a bit of reading in that, and please take time to look at that. But if you don't get through the full booklet, we have produced a slightly shorter version, and this short one-pager does give you some tips, not all tips, but some tips as to what maybe you can take home from today and apply to your soil, your swards, your animals, and even your slurry, which ultimately help to reduce the environmental credentials and impact of our farming systems, but more importantly as well, improve your profitability. So what have we been doing here in AFBI over the past couple of years? And it's all about sustainability. Now, I really wish we could find a different word for sustainability because it's getting very tired. But thankfully, there is a better recognition now that true sustainability is whenever we've got healthy people and a healthy society, a healthy economy, and then farmers are making a profit, and a healthy environment. But it's fair to say that, unfortunately, whilst we have challenges with our economy and profitability and society, it is the environmental challenges that probably are pushing that balance of those three pillars slightly out of where they need to be. So when it comes to environmental sustainability, the main challenges really are air quality, water quality, our gross emissions of greenhouse gases, and biodiversity. With regards to air quality now, just to help you understand why that's a problem, but more importantly, as we go around the stops today, things you can do now as well to start helping improve air quality. With regards to air quality, the biggest challenge locally is our ammonia emissions. So ammonia is created whenever feces and urine mix. So that means, there's a lot of ammonia created whenever animals are in the house, from the slurry under the tank, from the slurry store, and also then when the slurry is spread in the fields. So ammonia is a nitrogen forming gas, and the issue there is whenever ammonia is released up into the atmosphere, it actually doesn't travel very far, and it comes back down as nitrogen deposition onto the land. In Northern Ireland here, we don't have to go very far to reach a sensitive habitat. And it's whenever that ammonia or that nitrogen deposition comes back down onto those sensitive habitats, it's just like putting a great big dose of fertiliser onto those sensitive habitats. And all the briars and the nettles and thistles, they love it and they grow really well. But in fact, it nearly chokes some of those sensitive plants in those sensitive habitats. And that's one of the main drivers in Northern Ireland why we need to reduce our ammonia emissions. Now, how can we do that? We can reduce the crude protein in the diet. But for dairy or for beef and sheep farmers, we can also extend the grazing season when the weather allows, of course. We can also use LESI, low emission spreading techniques. And those are very, very effective to reduce ammonia emissions. So John McElroy, as you go round, will tell you a bit more about what those interventions are. And what we find is by adopting 5 or 6 fairly low cost interventions, we can reduce ammonia emissions in Northern Ireland by about 21%. So that would take us a long road down the way of trying to improve our water quality and protect those sensitive habitats and increase biodiversity as we go along the way. Whenever it comes to water quality, I'm not going to go over water quality and why that's a problem. We all know the issues from the press. But to help you understand what's the main driving factor of that is really phosphorus. So phosphorus levels in Northern Ireland, the average phosphorus of our farms is somewhere between 11 and 12 kilograms of phosphorus per hectare. We need to get that level down to about 5 kilograms of phosphorus per hectare to really drive prolonged and sustained improvements in water quality. So again, how can we do that? We've done a lot of research in this space as well. and reducing phosphorus content of diets is one way. But for you guys as the beef and sheep farming community, one of the most effective ways is getting your soil analysed so you know the phosphorus index of your fields and you're able to apply fertiliser and slurry in such a way then that reduces phosphorus runoff into the waterways but also maximises grass growth. The other way for beef and sheep community is riparian strips. And I don't know if you noticed as you were coming up the avenue on your right hand side, and if you're going out again, look at it on your left hand side, we have planted a lot of riparian strips and willow strips along the waterways. So the farm here as a whole is like one big catchment, and we've got Hillsborough Lake just beyond those trees. So we're very conscious of trying to really improve our water quality on the farm here. And what we've done is using the LIDAR maps from the Soil Nutrient Health Scheme, we have identified risk areas and we've planted those willow strips along the waterways accordingly. And we've been able to find that we really can reduce the phosphorus into the waterways by planting those willow strips or riparian strips. It doesn't have to be willow, but riparian strips, and they really do reduce the amount of phosphorus getting into the waterway. The Biomass Connect tour, just whenever you finish this tour, you can go into the next field and see the Biomass Connect, and that's about other woody species that we can use. And those woody species not only help and protect our waterways, but they also serve a role in sucking carbon dioxide out of the air and locking it away for a long time, which of course helps our carbon footprint. So moving on to carbon footprint, again, whenever we look at the global averages and where Northern Ireland's beef and lamb production sit within global averages, it's very good. So we can produce a lot of meat and lamb from low inputs, and that is really good. Our challenge here in Northern Ireland is the fact we have an awful lot of livestock, and therefore our gross emissions of the key greenhouse gases, which are methane and nitrous oxide, have increased significantly from 1990 to current day levels. And what we have to do out to 2050 is almost half the amount of methane and nitrous oxide that we're producing. But again, there are ways to do that. When it comes to nitrous oxide, it's a very, very potent greenhouse gas, and it's produced when we put fertiliser on the land. So bringing clover back into the swards means that we need to put it on less fertiliser, and that creates less nitrous oxide. And as you go around here today, David Patterson will talk a little bit more about how effective that clover can be in reducing our need for fertiliser. When it comes to methane emissions and reducing the gross amount of methane emissions from our farming system, 24-month slaughter and 24-month calving are really important interventions, and they will bring down those gross emissions as well as those good efficiency measures. The beef industry have some methane inhibitors that we could use at the minute, but there's another one coming into the market probably in the next year or so, and I think that will be a key way to reduce methane emissions as well. So as we go through there, there's a lot of interventions that we can talk about as we go around the tours that are win-wins for both the air quality, water quality, and indeed the carbon footprint. But we're scientists, and today is all about giving you the solutions of what we've currently found, but we're also looking to the future. We're also thinking, what does farming in the next 10 to 15 years actually look like, and what does it need to look like for us to be globally leading when it comes to sustainable meat and beef and lamb production? And this simple graphic tries to explain a little bit of that. So in the future, we do see a lot more managing our swards, managing our animals, and precision management being applied to that. So measuring and monitoring and precision managing our swards to maximise growth production. And that precision management will also help us deal with the volatile weather conditions that we're already beginning to see. If you were here yesterday, you'd been cutting to with the wind up the back fields. We were clean foundered yesterday, but today, thankfully, the sun's out. So we've got a lot more volatility in our weather patterns, and again, David Patterson will talk about that. So we see a lot more need to measure and monitor and precision manage our swards, and then precision manage our animals as well. There'll be a lot of nature-based solutions, just like those willows that I've talked about, a lot of nature-based solutions for our air and water quality, but a lot of technology as well. So some of the work we'll be doing here is looking at technologies to try and identify the ill health in animals much earlier, even before clinical signs are shown. So that means we're reducing the amount of lost days on the farm. Other technologies include anaerobic digestion, as well as separation and centrifugation of our slurries. Chris Johnson will talk about that towards the end of the tour. And there's also an opportunity up at the top of the farm then to see our separation and anaerobic digestion. So precision management, lots of nature-based solutions, technology solutions. This is all going to create a lot more data. So you're probably sitting thinking, oh my word, I've got enough data. I really don't want any more data. But I think we have to get used to the fact we're going to have a lot more data in the future. And we should embrace that. And it's our job as scientists to try and then bring that data together, connect it up in such a way that it makes sense and it's easy for you guys to actually then interpret and use on your own farms. But it's not only for your own use. I think we all have to think about how we can use that data to prove to society and government the positive changes that the farming industry is making. So if you go into your GP, sometimes your data is being used for the wider public good. Again, I think we have to challenge ourselves and think, how can our data then be used for the wider farming good into the future? As I said, to prove to society and governments the positive moves we're making towards protecting our environment, whilst also feeding the UK. So, people do talk to me about, oh, we have to feed the world. Well, the world's a big place and Northern Ireland's quite a small place. Northern Ireland's not going to feed the world, but it is going to have a really big impact on supporting food security right across the UK. And even within the UK's population is expected to grow by 10% by 2050. So that's an extra 7 million people to feed in the UK. And Northern Ireland has a big role to play in that. So folks, I do see a real opportunity for the farming community in Northern Ireland to embrace a precision future that's connected by data, and for us to really be globally leading when it comes to sustainable beef and lamb production. So I'm happy to take any questions now before you would move on.